All states or situations.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show, the Garden Guide, here on KVNU on this beautiful Saturday morning as we're looking at temperatures being back into the low 90s today and tomorrow. Then mid to high 90s possibly for the first of next week. It's Will Feel Right along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden. And Mark, great to have you back in the studio.
Yeah, thank you. It is July next week,
I
so
know.
90s are kind of normal.
Can you believe that 2025 is halfway over?
It's crazy.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
It's just flown by.
Tuesday is July 1st.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Next
It's
weekend, you've
gone
got,
by
of course,
fast.
the July 4th holiday. And
Already.
yeah.
Yeah, that means hopefully your peas are all done.
Yeah.
For most everybody. Peas and spinach and lettuce are kind of probably starting to taper off.
much finished.
Yeah, starting to get hot. So our peas, I think we did our last picking this week, and they're pretty much done. But I'll tell you, my carrots and my beets are going crazy. And I swear my giant pumpkins are growing a foot a day on the vines, and I've got a couple fruit set, so
Nice.
exciting
Oh,
to see.
good.
Yeah, exciting to see what happens there. So it's nice to get a fruit set before the 1st of July. So excited.
Plus, if you've got fruit trees, I know we've been watching our peach tree. This is the first year we're going to get a good crop off of that and kind of get it excited.
Cherries are ripening up. I'm seeing cherries all over the place that are like, not quite ready to pick, but getting close.
Getting close?
Yeah, just getting close. So there's a lot of different things we can talk about. Cherry fruit fly. We need to address that if people's cherries are coming on, so we can talk about that. Tobacco budworms are popping up like crazy. So I've had people in this week and they're just like, oh, my petunia plants look great, but they don't have any flowers on them. You know, am I not fertilize them enough? It's like, well, probably got budworms.
Yeah.
So budworms are chomping on the flowers and eating them before they open up.
Starting to see a few moths around the garden too, which
Saw those too. So we can talk a little insect prevention. We can talk. It is really critical right now that you feed your plants. And so like this morning, I got up early before the show so I could get out and feed my tomatoes because they were showing they were stressing just a little bit last night because they hadn't been watered for like 4 days. And so very critical to fertilize right now, especially with something with high calcium in it. And so the calcium really, really helps with fruit set and fruit production, but it also helps prevent blossom end rot, which we see a lot in the tomatoes. So high calcium fertilizer right now. So we can talk about that as well too. I'll go through like my special tomato recipe to get the tomatoes going like crazy.
Fertilizer.
I've got plants that are 4 feet tall right now that have fruit all over them.
Wow.
Yeah, and here it is. It's not even the 1st of July. Yeah. So they're going crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, going crazy.
Well, phone lines are open. We can take your calls all morning long. 435-753-5868. Since we didn't get a chance to take calls last week, we want to open up the phone lines and give you a chance to call in with questions, comments for Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden. And before we start taking those calls, Mark, let us know what's going on this weekend at Anderson Seed and Garden.
Some great specials going on this weekend at Anderson. So all the remaining vegetables that we've got in our greenhouse are 50% off or more discounted. So we've got some really nice tomatoes still. So there's some great tomatoes. So if you've had a tomato loss or you're just got an extra spot in your garden, you want something, plenty of time to do tomatoes or peppers or squashes, especially like some of your summer squashes. Some of the summer squashes, they only take 40 days to produce. So great deal on vegetable plants. They're 50% off. Our 4-inch geraniums are $1 right now, so we've got $1 on 4-inch geraniums. They look really good. Wave petunias are half price. Our bloomed out perennials, so the perennials that have finished blooming already for this year, but the plants still look great, they're 50% off too. So we've got a whole section with bloomed out perennials that are on sale. And of course, our fruit trees are still 25% off. So we've got a great selection of fruit trees, really good selection of fruit trees, 25% off on the fruit trees. And take advantage of that. I'm going to be planting some fruit trees myself this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so 25% off on the fruit trees. So, yeah. And we've got callers coming in already, it looks like. So if you would like to call in and join us here on the Garden Guide, the phone number is 753-KVNU-5868, 753-5868. Call us and join us here on the show. So, Will, we've got our first caller.
We do. Let's go out to the phones. We have Gary joining us on the line from Nibley. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Mark, I've got a honey locust tree that each year I apply Fruit of the Loom shrub drench and also Monterey tree treats.
Yeah.
This year, the tree just doesn't still look good. Is there something else that might be going on?
The tree treats really do help, and so that's like the best way to get nutrient and iron and other micronutrients into the tree. So it's probably got all the nutrient that it needs. What does it look like, Gary? What's some symptoms?
I've got branches, small branches that there's hardly any leaves on it. It just looks bare. If you look up to the tree, it doesn't look full
like
leaves,
like it should. Yeah, there is a disease that gets into the honey locust, and it's a bacterial canker. So it'll cause cankers on the branches, and those cankers disrupt the sap flow, so that then water and nutrient isn't running through the branches or the twigs like they're supposed to, and so then you don't get like the fullness of the leaves. There's a possibility it could be that. And then if you're doing the drench, like the Fruit of the Loom drench on it, that works on pretty much all your insects. So if there were like gall that were getting into the leaves, or leaf hoppers, which really love the locusts as well too, that would usually take care of those. What I might have you do is cut off a section of one of the branches that's not looking great, and just bring it in so I can take a look at it. Like cut off 18 inches or 2 feet of a branch you're okay sacrificing, and bring it in, and we can see if we can identify some canker that's happening on there. And otherwise, I'll be able to look at the leaves that are on there and see if they're like healthy and the proper size and everything. See if it's getting enough nutrient as well too. So that would be
all right. I appreciate that. I'll do that.
That would be great. I'll be there most of the day today. I think we got to leave a little bit early, probably 3:30 this afternoon. We got a commitment for tonight. So
okay.
All right.
I'll do that. Thanks,
Super.
Mark.
Thanks, Gary. Anytime.
Okay. Yep. Bye.
Okay, and that opens up a phone line at 753-5868 if you've got a question, comment for Mark at 753-KVNU. And let's go right back out to the phones. We have Gordon joining us on the line. Welcome to the show, Gordon.
Oop.
Hold on, we got to just move Gordon over here.
All right.
There we go. Gordon, welcome to the show.
Okay. That's more like
We got you. We got you, yeah.
How we doing?
Great.
Hey, Mark, when I was in the store, I on an impulse, I bought some goji berries plants. Now I need to know what to do with them. Is that something that sort of grows up like a little bit of a hedge or something? I have a vague memory of seeing them, and some lady told me that they were like a superfood.
They are.
And I thought,
yeah, they're very high. They're very high in antioxidants, and it is a superfood, so they're really nutritious and good for you. And they will get probably, I think it's about 4 feet tall. Don't hold me to it, but I think they're going to get about 4 feet tall. They are pretty aggressively. I mean, they'll grow pretty quickly, so they'll take off. Okay. And they're kind of fun to grow.
And they're a full sun thing, right?
Full sun. Yep, they want full sun, and kind of. If I were to plant one, I would treat it like I do my tomatoes right now. You know, I would feed it at least once a week and really get it going and get it to take off. Hardiness wise, I'm struggling to remember how hardy they are. I don't think they're super hardy. I think they're not going to like really make it through the winter and come back again next year. So I might even have to double check that.
I have kind of a sheltered spot that might work. That's got a good up against a white fence, got a good sun exposure, so maybe that might be a a good place to put them. So
I think that would be great. Yeah, full sun would be great. So make sure you go full sun, and don't overwater them. They don't like to have like too much water. And
okay, that's good to know.
And so that would be good. And then a little bit of food like once a week, and you should be great.
All right. Well, just give them a try. And our hummingbirds have been absolutely loving our hummingbird mint. They spend as much time on that as they do on the feeder. So,
that sounds great. So, definitely full sun, really well drained soil. So they don't like really heavy soil. So stay away from the clay.
Oh, all right. I'll have to do some amendment on that.
Yeah, a little sand might help.
Once they are established, they are really pretty drought tolerant. So they don't need to be watered too frequently. They don't they don't really get many bugs, and they don't really get many diseases. They do like to be mulched. So you can mulch like fairly heavily around the plant, so you don't have to water as much. So, if you put a good deep mulch on, an inch or two of mulch, then you could water like once a week, once every 10 days, and they would be great.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay. We'll get them in the ground. I'll report back later on then. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And then
Thanks, Mark.
Plants are going to be about, I think I was about right, 4 to 6 feet should be good. And they are a zone 4. So I did look it up, and they are a zone 4.
Okay.
So you should be good, and they should come back again next year, especially if you mulch that root system nice in the late fall.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds perfect.
Cool.
All right. Thanks. Good to have you back.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Gordon.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
753 KVNU. That's 753-5868. If you have a question or comment for Mark Anderson Seed and Garden, and mentioned a lot going on this weekend. Of course, we've got a lot going on next weekend with the 4th of July. And of course, temperatures really getting hot. I'm sure it's a question you're getting a lot right now, Mark, is how much water should I be putting on my garden? How can I make sure that I'm watering my plants enough and yet not overwatering?
Yeah. And of course, we had a cool week to start, so it was like great temperatures.
Yeah.
So the plants in the garden really responded well. And we've only been watering about every 3 to 4 days in our vegetable garden. So I think last time we talked about how I do my soaker hoses.
Last week.
The soaker hoses. It works awesome. And really, I'm only watering every 3 to 4 days. So this week it was more like 4 to 5 days because it was cooler. And I was doing a good deep soaking. So this morning I got up really early, and for my tomato plants, I fertilize them almost every time I water them for the first 6 weeks. So I planted mine right around Memorial Day. So all my plants went in right around Memorial Day, and I'm watering twice a week. And every time I water, I use the compost tea. So I use our compost tea on them, and then I kind of boost it with a little bit of other fertilizer as well too, because the compost tea doesn't have like a micronutrient package in it. So I will add some Bicor's like Nutri-Green or their all-purpose just to put all the micros in with it as well too. But I'm fertilizing every single time I water. And when I fertilize, I will put a disease control in there as well too. So I'm using Fungicide 5 from Fertilome, and the Fungicide 5 is a biofungicide. So it's a bacteria, but it's a good bacteria instead of a bad bacteria. So every time I fertilize, this fertilizer fungicide combination is going all over the leaves. So I'm like watering the plant with it. So it's getting all over the plant, but then I water the root system with it as well too. So not only is it picking up the nutrient, but there's beneficial microbes and microorganisms that are like stimulating soil activity. They're breaking down the nutrient, making it available to the plant. But they're also mycorrhiza in there to increase the size of the root system. So it makes the roots go like crazy. And that disease prevention in there, the Fungicide 5, fights off diseases that are in the soil as well as on the plant. And so for the first 6 to 8 weeks, every time I water, they get that same combination. They just keep getting fed. And so my plants get really big, but they put out so many blossoms and one of the fertilizers that we use in the compost tea has calcium nitrate in it. And so the calcium is critical for the plants, not only to produce flowers and set fruit and get that fruit to ripen up faster, but it prevents blossom end rot on your plants. And so a high calcium fertilizer, it's going on the foliage as well as into the root system. I'm feeding them for probably about 8 weeks. And when they really start setting fruit and that fruit starts to ripen up, which is going to happen here in a couple weeks, I stop fertilizing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just like fertilize for about 2 months.
And then stop.
And then I'm done. And then they just produce like crazy for the rest of the year.
And after that, you just continue consistent with watering, and
watering.
that's all you do.
Even through the hot, dry part of the summer when it's 95 to 100 degrees out there and it's just dry, they're getting watered twice a week.
Okay.
So about every 4 days, they're getting a good soaking with my soaker hoses or my drip system, depending on which one I use for my tomato plants. This year, I think I'm going to use the drip system. It worked great last year, and they just get a good deep soaking, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, good deep soaking once every 4 weeks. But the critical part is feed early on. And so I'm just like feeding twice a week early on. And then by the time I pick that first ripe tomato,
then
I cut back on the fertilizer. Yep, no more fertilizer, because those plants at that point are like 6 feet tall, and they're like, you can't even wrap your arms around them. They're so huge, and they're just setting fruit like crazy at that point. Yeah.
Now, what about for the rest of your garden, like your corn and your beans?
Yeah.
And
my corn's about 8 to 10 inches right now, so it's time for the first fertilization. So I was thinking about that last night. I was like, I got to take fertilizer home and hit that corn, because the corn really is a heavy feeder, and it uses a lot of nitrogen. And so with the corn, high nitrogen fertilizer. And the corn likes sulfur as well, too. So usually ammonium sulfate is great. There's some other really good fertilizers, but you want a fertilizer with a high first number. So that first number is nitrogen. And so the corn is a really heavy feeder. So I feed mine 3 times during the growing season. And I fertilize before I plant as well, too. So so I fertilize before I plant. But when the corn gets about 10 to 12 inches tall, straight nitrogen on the corn. I do it again when it's 3 feet tall, and then I do it again when it tassels. And if you'll do that, you'll have absolutely the best corn that you've ever grown. Like the best corn you've ever had. Like the ears will be bigger. They'll fill out all the way to the tip. You'll get 2 and sometimes 3 ears per stalk. So you'll be getting way more corn production. Yeah. But that corn is a really heavy nitrogen feeder. So if it's not getting enough nitrogen, it's going to be short. The ears aren't going to fill out all the way. The ears are going to be really small. You're only going to get like 1 ear per stalk. And you'll just notice that that's not as good as it usually ought to be, because it has pulled all the nitrogen out of your soil. So you got to feed the corn really consistently throughout the year with that high nitrogen. I'm going to try a new fertilizer this year. So we've got one that's called Pro Peat. And instead of having just an inert carrier, it actually has peat moss. So it uses peat moss as the carrier for the fertilizer. So it puts a lot of carbon out there, but it's really high in sulfur. And it's high in nitrogen. It's got other micronutrients in there as well. And so I'm going to use that on my corn this year and see how it works.
Okay.
So the Pro Peat comes from Idaho. And so the company that puts it together, they're from Idaho. So they're not local, but they're just
regional.
They're just over the border. And so they put some really great fertilizers together. And we did our lawn with it this year, and it's looking really, really good. Like we've been gone for a couple days, and I got back and I had just fertilized it before we left, and it looks awesome right now. It looks really, really good. So I'm excited about the Pro Peat to see how that works, because it's putting carbon back into the soil, and it helps the soil retain moisture because it's got the peat moss in it. And so I'm really curious to see how it works on the corn as well too. So that should be good. So tomatoes and peppers, I'm fertilizing basically every time I water, until they start producing. The corn we're going to hit when it's 12 inches tall, when it's 3 feet tall, and when it tassels. And then with like my cucumbers and squashes and melons, I've done a slower release fertilizer, right down the row with the plants and in the soil, so they'll get fed basically throughout the summertime with this slow release fertilizer. But I'll do those like once a week. Instead of with the tomatoes and the peppers, I'm doing them like twice a week. I'll just do it once a week just to kind of boost it. And with the mycorrhiza and the beneficial microbes in there, it really frees up the nutrient, makes it available to the plants. And all of a sudden, your squashes and your pumpkins and your melons will just be like covered with fruit.
Okay.
They just go like crazy. So they need a little bit more nutrient than what you think. Mm-hmm. And if you boost that root system with the mycorrhiza, all of a sudden they're able to pick up water and pick up nutrient a lot better. Your plants are bigger, they're healthier, they're more resilient when it's hot, so you don't have to water as much because the root system's bigger and it's more efficient. So it's picking up the water and nutrient that's naturally out there in the soil, and instead of just depending on you to water it like every single time. Right. It needs to be watered. So those plants are going like crazy. And then we use the Bigfoot on our carrots this year. So we'll see how things go. Yeah. But since Mark from Green Grow was on the show 2 weeks ago, we've been playing with biochar a lot more. So I've been putting biochar into like all the plants, and I've used it where my giant pumpkins are. Oh, and they're just going really, they're going nuts. Yeah, they're going nuts. So I'm very excited about that.
So a good broadcast spreader for your beans. You just throw that out about once a week or so.
But I'm doing a liquid on the squashes, melons, cucumbers for like my beans and my the carrots and the beets.
You use a granule?
I used a granule, and I just kind of sprinkled it right down the rows. Mm-hmm. I hate feeding the weeds in between the rows, so I don't broadcast the fertilizer out. I'll just put it right down there, down the rows, right where the plants are, and side dress the plants as they're growing, so that I'm not feeding all the purslane and and the pigweed and the ragweed and all the other nasty weeds that are out there, the puncture vine and the burr buttercups. I don't want to feed those guys. And so I put the fertilizer right where my plants are, so that I don't have to worry about feeding the weeds.
We found that especially helpful for corn. Mm-hmm. Is just run a row of fertilizer right down by it, and then side dress it over.
Yep.
And then just water that in.
I'll actually with my corn is I'll just have a glove on my hand, and I'll take the fertilizer and I'll just do about a teaspoon to a tablespoon for each clump of corn that's coming up, because I put a couple seeds every 12 to 18 inches in my rows, and so I'll just put about a teaspoon to a tablespoon around each cluster of corn, and then I will furrow it with my garden cultivator. So it's kind of a moldboard plow, so it pushes the dirt all to one side. It doesn't furrow right down the middle and push it to both sides. It pushes all the dirt to one side. And so I'll furrow right next to the corn, and it pushes a little bit of dirt on top of the
keep the fertilizer in place.
Yeah, so it keeps the fertilizer there. Then when my soaker hoses go, then it saturates the soil through there, and then it releases the nitrogen.
Right there.
Just right there to the root system. And so then you get nice tall stalks of corn and bigger ears and multiple ears. Last year I was getting 2 ears per stalk, and they were just like big, full, nice ears with the corn all the way right out to the tip. No blanks or anything. The corn was amazing. So I'm salivating already thinking about the corn as it's coming on, but unfortunately it's only 10 inches tall right now.
yeah we still got a little ways to go.
It's got a ways to go. 10 inches tall is just not quite there yet.
All right, well, we're approaching the bottom of the hour, but we've still got plenty of time to take more calls. 753 KVNU, that's 753-5868. If you've got a question about fertilizing, we need to talk about insects and some diseases coming up this next segment. But you mentioned, too, some specials going on this weekend.
Yeah, specials at Anderson's this weekend. So all of our remaining vegetables, and we have some great-looking tomatoes. So if you're wishing you had a couple more tomato plants, there is plenty of time to plant tomatoes, and we can get them on our little fertilizer regimen, and you will have plants producing like crazy in no time. So I think if you still planted right now, and it's almost the 1st of July, you could really have, ripe fruit off of a new plant that you're planting right now by the middle part of August, and then they'll produce all the way until October. So you've got time to do it. So vegetables, half price at Anderson's. Our 4-inch geraniums are $1. We've got some great 4-inch geraniums. Wave petunias, 50% off. Our bloomed out perennials are 50% off. We've got some that look great, but they've finished blooming already for this year. They're early bloomers. And so we trim the flowers off and sell them for half price, so you can get some really good perennials that way. And then all of our fruit trees, 25% off. And I've got apples, pears, cherries, apricots, plums, nectarines, you name it. We've got it for fruit trees.
Okay.
Yeah. Really great selection on fruit trees, and we need to move them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go out to the phone lines. We have Wes joining us on the line from Providence. Wes, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad you mentioned fruit trees because my wife wants to plant some. We recently built a new home, and we're in the middle of landscaping and such. My question's about trees. What columnar trees do you recommend and are good for our area?
Great. So you want something that's tall and skinny?
Yeah, tall and skinny, probably relatively close to the house in a few spots.
Okay. How tall do you want them to get eventually?
20, probably 20 to 30. 20, probably at least 20 feet.
Okay. So
if that was it, that would be fine.
Yep. There's some great columnar oaks that I have some at the store that we planted like many years ago, and I've got some at my house, and I love them. And so there's some great columnar oaks that will probably eventually get about 40 feet tall, but it takes a long time for them to get that big. And they will only get about 10 feet wide. So there's like Regal Prince, which is great. The Crimson Spire is awesome, and they have really great color during the summer. They're dark green, and then you've got a nice color in the fall. The thing about the oaks that I really, really like is the leaves stay on the trees in the fall, so you don't ever have to rake up leaves in the fall, and they give you a little bit of color throughout the wintertime. So like the leaves will stay on throughout the wintertime. They don't fall off until the spring when the new leaves come out. And so you have what looks like a tree during the wintertime instead of just a stick. So,
yeah, okay.
which is kind of nice. There's some really great columnar birch trees as well too. So there is, let's see, Dakota Pinnacle is a really nice columnar birch tree. There's some great columnar maples as well too. So you've got a birch, a maple, a oak. If you want something with flowers on it, there's some new crab apples that have come out the last couple of years. It's called the Spear series, and so they're about 25 feet tall, but they only get about 8 to 10 feet wide, so they're really kind of skinny. And there's one that has white flowers on it. There's one that has pink flowers on it. There's one that has kind of purplish flowers on it. They call it raspberry spear, and the white one's called ivory spear. And they are persistent fruit, so they don't drop fruit all over the place. They have fruit, but the fruit stays on the tree, and it's small, and then the birds will come in and eat the fruit off the tree in the late fall, winter time, so you never have to like rake up fruit all over the place. So gorgeous flowers in the springtime, and then no fruit mess in the fall to have to clean up. And they've got good fall color as well too. So there's some really great options for some tall, skinny trees that would fit perfect in your landscape.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then you mentioned your fruit trees.
Yeah.
When does it become too late to plant those?
About December. Yeah.
Okay.
So you got plenty of time. Yeah. So it's like here we're almost into July, and I've got some new trees that I took home that were bare root this spring, and I just couldn't get them planted when they were bare root. So I put them in 10-gallon pots, and I've been kind of babying them at my house. And so they're really starting to fill those pots up with roots now. And I'm going to transplant them sometime in July. So we're talking hottest, driest, middle part of the summer. And I've planted in July multiple times over the years, and they do great. They do really, really well. Okay. You just got to make sure and dig your holes extra wide. And so if it's in a 5-gallon pot, you're going to dig your hole 3 times the width of the pot, but about the same depth. and then you've got plenty of room for the root system to expand out before it hits the hard, compacted soil.
Hard dirt.
Yeah. And by the time it hits that, it's really well established, and it can force its way into your harder, more compacted soil that way. But it gives it like a couple years where it can really take off, and just the root system can really spread, and they'll get established a lot faster. You won't have as much transplant shock. So I don't have a concern about planting in July or August. No problem.
Okay. And then, you have any good recommendations to keep deer from eating them?
Yeah. It's like deer in my yard, like
electric fence.
The bane of our existence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got home from work yesterday, and I had like a thing I had to go to last night, and I pulled into my driveway, and there's like a deer sitting there, like right in my yard, having a little snack on some of my plants. It's just like it's a daily occurrence. So. Plants that they don't like, obviously. So there's certain plants we can plant that they don't like. I do have some repellents that work really well throughout the landscape to keep them off. But for my garden, I've fenced it. I just had to fence my garden because they'll just get in there and eat everything until there's nothing left. So there are some options. Netting works great. Deer stopper is one of our favorites. The deer stopper is great, but it's only good for 3 to 4 weeks, so you have to keep applying it to keep them away. So we've got some options, but it's not 100% foolproof until you put up the 8-foot fence.
We've talked about in the past the motion-sensitive sprinklers.
The motion-sensitive sprinklers are awesome.
Those can help.
Yeah, I love my motion-sensitive sprinkler because it'll pick up the motion of anything, neighbor's dog, deer, you, when you go out there in the evening, and all of a sudden it picks up that motion, and then the sprinkler turns on. And so you've got cold water and noise and spray. That actually that works really, really well. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you for those ideas.
You're welcome. If you come into the store, Wes, I'd be glad to show you pictures and shapes and sizes of those trees. I've got a really great reference that we can kind of look at and say, okay, this is how tall it's going to get, this is how wide it's going to get, and this is what it looks like. And it's really helpful when you're trying to decide what trees you want to do. So.
Yeah, I'll talk to the wife and we'll swing by.
Yep, important that you visit with the boss. So
yes.
Yep, very important.
Yeah, it's really her yard. I'm just a grunt.
Exactly.
I know the feeling. So, yep. All right, Wes, thanks so much for calling.
Jay, yeah, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that takes us down to the bottom of the hour. We've got a quick news break, and we'll be right back after just a moment. And we can talk more insects, talk more trees, and talk about more diseases to watch out for in your garden, too.
Lawn diseases and insects we need to hit when we get back, and then tobacco budworms for sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And we can take more of your calls, 435-753-KVNU for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
30 minutes after the hour, and with your KVNU News headlines, I'm Will Feelright. A warrant's been issued now for a Florida woman accused of illegally withdrawing over $400,000 from a Logan bank. Kirsten Kunstler, a 42-year-old of Fort Lauderdale, was charged earlier this week in Logan's First District Court with multiple felonies, including communications fraud, theft by deception, and money laundering. Now, investigators say that in May of last year, Kunstler allegedly entered a Mountain America Credit Union branch in Logan. Using a fake driver's license, she reportedly obtained a cashier's check of over $438,000 from a woman's home equity line of credit. Now, the victim's husband discovered the theft in August when the bank notified him of an outstanding payment. Now, detectives identified Kunstler after learning of a similar string of crimes that she allegedly committed in Texas around the same time. So far, she's been yet to be taken into custody. And a reward now is being offered for the safe return of two Idaho teenagers. Alan Loran Fisher, a 13-year-old, and Rochelle LaRae Fisher, a 15-year-old, vanished last Sunday night from their Montview, Idaho home. Now, their mother, Elizabeth Roundy, believes that her children were abducted by older siblings and other members of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, the Uvalde Foundation for Kids, a national advocacy group, announced earlier this week a reward of up to $5,000 for information leading to their safe return. Now, an Amber Alert remains active for Alan and Rochelle, with tips coming in from across the country. Rochelle has brown hair and blue eyes and was last seen in a dark green dress, while Alan has sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, and was wearing a light blue shirt with blue jeans. Now, authorities have said that the two may be traveling to Trenton, where they lived previously. Well, clear skies continuing over the next several days. I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headlines.
I'm Jim Basswell. Get it started on the diamond. On a night, Spencer Steer hit 3 home runs. He was overshadowed by his teammate Nick Martinez, who was working on a no-no into the 9th.
The pitch. He lifts it high in the air, left center field, deep Valade on the run, turns, looks, and it is off the base of the wall. Around to third base is Brooks. Into second base, Elias Diaz with a double, and that is the Padres' first hit tonight. And a standing ovation for Nick Martinez.
Indeed, 700 WLW, the pinch hitter Elias Diaz spoiled it with that 2-sacker in the 9th. Reds 8-1 over the Padres. Martinez had retired 22 consecutive hitters. That 112th pitch was his final on the night, which tied a career high. Gary Sanchez homer drove in 4-0, storm back from an early 6-run deficit and rout the Rays 22-8. Trey Turner, 2 of Philly's 5 home runs. They rout the Braves 13-0. Cam Smith, 3-run home run against his first team. The Cubs, Astros beat Chicago 7-4 in a battle of first place team. Sonny Gray allowed 1 hit, struck out a season-high 11. First complete game since 2017, 89 pitches. Cardinals beat the Guardians 5-0. Mitch Keller ended a 15-star winless streak. Brian Reynolds, a 3-run shot. Pirates blast the Mets 9-1. Shohei led off with his 29th home run. Dodgers beat the Royals 5-4. George Springer, 3 hits, 2 knocked in. Blue Jays over the Red Sox. That final was 9-0. NHL Islanders select defenseman Matthew Schaefer with the top overall pick in the National Hockey League draft. Just the 5th time the defenseman's picked first overall since 2000. And the Raptors president and vice chairman Masai Ujiri fired after 13 years with the franchise, while the Wolves pay up big. Naz Reid, 5 years, $125 million to stay in Minnesota.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson of Wilson Motor Company. It's that time of year to celebrate our 82nd anniversary with our biggest sales event of the year. We have reduced prices on over 300 Ford, Lincoln, Nissan, and pre-owned vehicles, including over 50 F-150s and 35 Super Duties in stock and coming. We have discounts as high as $12,000 and interest rates as low as 0% for 60 months. Check our inventory online at wilsonmotor.com.
Wilson Motor Company, we make car buying easy.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU. Will Feelright along with Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden, taking your calls, your questions about all things lawn and garden. Phone lines are open at 753 KVNU. That's 753-5868. Just before we were going to the break, Mark, you mentioned we need to talk a little bit about some of the insects, diseases we're seeing right now in gardens and, in yards too. Wasps.
Yeah.
Are everywhere.
Oh, the wasps are going crazy. And flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, flies too. So we've got some good traps for the flies as well. Haven't seen mosquitoes too bad yet. I don't know if you
did one night
at your house.
One night was really bad, actually, to put it on a little repellent.
Yeah.
But then since then it hasn't been bad.
Hasn't been too bad. It's gotten really dry quickly, and so we're not seeing like puddles and I thought the way the season started out, we're gonna have mosquitoes like crazy, but it's kind of like backed off a little bit. If we start getting some monsoonal moisture, which I think they're talking maybe next week, we might start getting some storms rolling through. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah,
but it's cool things going on at Anderson. So we've got a lot of things on sale. So the greenhouses are starting to get a little depleted, but we have a great selection of perennials. Shrubs and trees, like the nursery area is covered with trees and shrubs, so we've got some great looking plants right now, and of course with the shade cloth out, the plants look really, really good. So we've got some great looking plants. But our fruit trees are on sale, so fruit trees 25% off. Great time to get fruit trees. They're in 5 and 7 gallon containers. 25% off, save you some money. And we've got apples, we've got pears, we've got apricots, plums, cherries, peaches, nectarines, a little bit of everything. And so if you're thinking fruit trees, great time to plant from now until the end of November. Anytime the soil's not frozen, great time to go ahead and plant those. All the vegetables in our vegetable house are half price or greater discounts. So we've got some really good plants that look amazing, some tomatoes that look awesome. They're ready to be planted. If you got an empty spot where you're just like, I need to put one more thing in there, we've got tomatoes. We've got a few peppers left, and some squashes and melons and cucumbers. And with the tomatoes, I'm starting to see a few plants, like samples that people are bringing in that have disease or kicking the bucket. So if you've got some plants that are not looking great, yank them out, put a new one in, and start over. Geraniums are $1. So we've got 4-inch geraniums. They're $1. Wave petunias are on sale. They're half price. And we've got bloomed out perennials to go with the beautiful ones that are blooming right now. But the bloomed out perennials that have already bloomed, we've trimmed the flowers off, and they are 50% off as well too.
Oh, okay.
We've got some great looking roses. Like, our roses are looking awesome this year. So we've got some really good looking roses. So a little bit of everything happening at Anderson's, and some good sales and some good discounts as well too.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Good things going on.
Well, let's first talk about insects.
Yeah.
Because my wife, I came home yesterday afternoon, and she's like, went out with the dog, went and sat on we have a little swing out in the backyard. She's like, we hadn't been out there for more than 30 seconds, and a wasp got me. They are all over
the place. Yeah. I was out watering my fruit trees, the ones that I'm babying. And I got bit like 3 times.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a sting. It was like they actually bit me.
Like, just take a big old chunk out of it.
I had like 2 holes in my arm. And, it hurt like crazy. And so they are aggressive, and there's a lot of them. And wasps and hornets and yellow jackets are out in force. And so there's some traps that work really well. We found with the traps, you've got to put the traps out away from like your patio or your deck. You don't want to attract them into the areas where you're hanging out. You want to attract them away from the areas.
Okay.
And so, I've gone to people's homes, and they've had like the wasp traps up all the way around their pool. And I'm just like, why are you putting these up around the pool? I mean, they're already attracted to the water in the first place. Let's put them at the farthest corner of your yard so that they will go there
and away
from where you're going to hang out. Yeah, instead of right there at the pool. It doesn't make sense to attract them to where you're hanging out. We want to attract them somewhere else, because the attractant that's in those traps is more attractive to them than the water or the people, or hopefully the food that you're cooking on the patio. We want to attract them somewhere else. So I like the Y traps, and they're called Y traps because they attract wasps, hornets, and yellow jackets.
So all 3,
which spells Y. Yeah.
Okay.
so W for wasp, H for hornets, Y for yellow jackets. It's the Y trap. So it attracts all 3.
Okay.
Because if you get a yellow jacket trap, they only have like one entrance, and the yellow jackets go in there and they get stuck and they can't get out. The Y trap actually has multiple entrances because they all are attracted to different things, and they all are caught in a different fashion. And so the Y trap actually works on all 3 of them.
Okay.
And so they're a little bit more effective. And we've got attractant that lasts for a couple weeks. So you want to put new attractant in about every 2 weeks to make sure that they're working. And then you'll catch a whole bunch in there. And then once you've caught a whole bunch, you can dump them in the garbage and then, or in the compost pile, whatever you want to do. And then start it all over again. And those actually work pretty well. If they're building nests, like up in the eaves of your house, or like in my shed, sometimes I'll open the shed door and it's like they're building a nest there. And It's like I was in there 2 days prior and there wasn't a nest. And then all of a sudden there's this, this nest that's, 5 inches across. And you're just like, where the heck did they come from? It's like, I was just out here like 2 days ago. And you want to knock them down really quick. There's a couple sprays that work really well. I like the one that foams up for taking out a nest. So if you've got a nest that has appeared and it's big and they're starting to really multiply, once you spray, when it hits the surface that you're targeting, it foams up and then it kind of coats the whole nest. And so it's really good for knocking out nests, and it'll spray probably 20 feet, 25 feet. And then when it hits the spot that you're targeting, it just kind of foams up and like covers it. So it's really good for taking out a whole nest. And the best way to do it if you're using an insecticide is to wait until the evening. So wait until the sun's gone down, but it's still light outside. And that's when all the wasps and hornets go home for the night.
Okay.
And they're already inside the nest. So you want the nest like full. You don't want to spray it in the middle of the day when they're all out, active. You want to get it when they're all, in one strategic location.
When they've come home for family dinner.
Yeah, exactly. And then you spray, and that foam will just it'll coat the whole nest. And then as they come out, they won't come after you. They get into the insecticide when they come out, and they just kind of basically drop to the ground because it just neutralizes them instantly. And so that actually works really well. But do it in the very, very late evening before it gets dark, but when the sun's gone down, and that's when it's going to be the most effective. And if you've got some, like we've seen mud wasps that are building nests in the ground, and we've seen some that are under people's decks, if you need to do that, we've got like the Bug Blaster from High Yield is excellent for that. And you can mix it up in a watering can and then water the mud nests with it. So if they're in the ground, you can saturate the soil and get it down into the nest and kill the nest that way. Okay. But timing is critical. Do it in the evening. They're not as aggressive. They won't come after you as much if we do that. And then if it's a beehive instead of wasps or hornets, I mean, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference. Then there's a lot of people that would love to come and gather the hive up, and so you can talk to Cox Honey. They'll do it. If it's a swarm, give us a call. We'll come and collect the swarm. I've got a crew that can come and collect the swarm. So that would be no problem. We don't want to get rid of those honeybees.
Yeah,
we want to keep those honeybees. But usually in June we'll have swarms that will show up and as hives split because they've got multiple queens or whatever. And we'd be happy to come and collect that. And if it's in a spot where we can't, or if it's a little bit more difficult, tricky, then there's options here in the valley. So Slide Ridge Honey, they'll come and get them as well too. So we've got multiple sources for gathering up beehives or bee swarms. Yeah, we definitely want to keep those.
Okay, all right. Phone lines are open, 435-753 KVNU. If you have a question, comment for Mark about insects. Now, we need to also talk about tobacco budworm.
Yes,
really a problem.
We're seeing them already. So I've got people bringing in samples, and they've got they'll come in the store and they've got kind of half chewed petunia blossoms in their hands, and they're like, something's eating my petunias, and I haven't seen grasshoppers or anything. And it's like, oh, you got tobacco budworms. And the budworms, they love geraniums and they love petunias. And not all insecticides work on the tobacco budworms. And so since they are tobacco budworms, there's some insecticides that are nicotine based. And they are resistant for some reason to the nicotine. Yeah, which is naturally present in the tobacco, and so they are resistant to that insecticide. So you don't want to use the nicotine-based insecticides because it won't touch them. It doesn't affect them at all. And so you've got to use some of the bacteria insecticides like BT, which kill caterpillars like crazy, or spinosad works on caterpillars. Okay. They're non-toxic to people. That's a natural bacteria, but the bacteria paralyzes their digestive system and eventually kills the caterpillars. And so they stop eating almost instantly when they consume the bacteria. It stops them from eating, and it's a slow, painful death for the caterpillars.
Which is what we want.
So if you want to torture them, that's a really great way to do it. Yeah, but the spinosad's totally safe. It won't hurt beneficial insects. It won't hurt your bees. It won't hurt your ladybugs. It won't hurt your praying mantis. It just kills the larval stages of the insects. And those are the ones that do the most damage. Okay. So they're the ones that are ravenous appetite. Yeah. They just eat like everything. The crazy thing about the tobacco budworms is they just eat the blossoms. And so your plants look amazing. Like the plants look perfect. They
But
look
the
so
blossoms
good, but
are
they have
all
no
gone.
flowers. Yeah, they have no flowers on them, and they'll actually eat the blossoms out before they open. And so you'll look at like the buds on the geraniums, and there's tons of buds there, and you look close at them, and there's a hole in them, and they've eaten all the flower out of the middle before they even opened up. And they'll do the same thing with the petunias. And so we have to treat the petunias on Center Street and on Main Street because we use a lot of petunias.
Mm-hmm.
We have to treat those almost on a weekly basis because they will just consume all the flowers. Yeah, and the plants look so good. They're like lush and green and big and growing like crazy, and there's not a single flower left on them. Yeah, yeah. So you have to preventatively do it, and we're starting to see the adults right now. The adults are a moth that you'll see in the evening, and they almost look like a hummingbird. They flap their wings really, really fast.
And they're large,
and
too.
they're big, yeah. They're really big, and they look like they've got kind of a really long snout, kind of like a hummingbird beak. And they lay their eggs on the petunias and on the geraniums, and they will just munch those blossoms to pieces. So spinosad, BT, those work great. So Bacillus thuringiensis, both of those insecticides are organic, completely safe for people, but very, very, very effective on caterpillars. So they work really, really well. We found that the spinosad soap can damage the blossoms on your petunias. So we don't really recommend the spinosad soap on like petunias that have lots of flowers on them because it'll discolor them. It'll discolor them a little bit. But the standard spinosad, no problem. And the BT works great. If you want to go with like a standard insecticide, then the Bug Blaster from High Yield works great. Really like the Bug Blaster. Sayonara 7.
Oh, yeah.
All of those will work really well also. And then they work on grasshoppers and box elder bugs and spiders and ants and aphids. And yeah, the spinosad and the BT, they really only work on caterpillars and the larval stages of the insects. It won't hurt any of the adults. That's why it's not toxic to the bees or the ladybugs or the praying mantis, because they're not in larval stage. They're adults. So it won't bother those adults. And so it really doesn't harm them at all, but it kills all the babies. And so those caterpillars will do so much damage in a short amount of time. And the great thing about spinosad is you can use it like right up to the minute you're going to harvest like your vegetables.
Doesn't affect
it. Doesn't affect it. No, and it won't bother people. I mean, you can consume it if you want. It doesn't taste very good. I will tell you from firsthand experience, it does not taste good, but it's not toxic to people. And so I can use that in my garden. That's like my first line of defense is the spinosad or the spinosad soap, because it really won't bother you like right up to, I'm going to harvest today, and I sprayed it, and it's like, oh, I'll just wash it off and eat it.
It's fine.
Yeah, and it's no problem. So great for cabbage loopers that get into cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and kohlrabi. The spinosad soap works great on aphids and thrips and spider mites, and we're starting to see spider mites like crazy. So I'm seeing bean samples and squashes with spider mites already. So the spinosad soap is very, very effective on those because the soap formulation works on those smaller, softer bodied insects as well as the caterpillars. It works great on like Mexican bean beetles and Colorado potato beetles. Again, it won't kill the adults, but the adults aren't doing the damage. It's the babies. It's the babies that are doing the damage. So it's great for Mexican bean beetles, great for Colorado potato beetles, but it's like your first line of defense, organic, super effective, but it doesn't kill everything. It's like certain insects we can target with it, but I don't worry about it. Like I'll spray it and I'll go, oh, I can eat that tonight. You know, it's like fine. No problem. I'll just like rinse it off and it's good to go. And then I'm using my repellent like every month right now. So every month the repellent goes out, works on grasshoppers, works on flying insects, moths, especially flies that are coming in. That's like great way to just cut the number of insects down in your vegetable garden, in your flower beds, in your lawn. Mosquitoes, it works awesome on mosquitoes, and it just drives the insects away so they go to your neighbor's house instead of to yours.
Instead of yours.
Yep, perfect.
All right. Well, we've come up to the top of the hour. The show's almost over, Mark. But let's mention again some specials happening at Anderson Seed and Garden this week as we head towards the 4th of July.
So this weekend and all of next week, we've got fruit trees on sale, 25% off. Great time to plant trees, great time to plant shrubs, great time to plant perennials. Even though it's hot, they can handle being planted right now. 25% off all of our fruit trees. And we have apples and pears and plums and apricots, cherries, peaches, nectarines. We've got like all the fruit trees that do well here. 25% off right now. All of our remaining vegetables are 50% off or greater discounted on some of them. And we've got some great tomatoes, some peppers, vines. You know, they're ready to be planted, so they need to find a home, and they're 50% off. Geraniums are $1. I've got some 4-inch geraniums that still look really, really good. They need to be planted. They need to find a home for $1 each. This is a great way to add some color to your landscape. And then we've got some wave petunias left. They're half price. And then bloomed out perennials. So the perennials still look great, but they're done blooming for this year. So they're earlier bloomers. So they bloomed in like April, May, and so they're done. 50% off on our bloomed out perennials, and they'll come back. They'll bloom next year and the year after and the year after, and they'll do great in your yard. They're just done blooming for this year.
Okay. And as we were mentioning to Wes, right now, great time to plant.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of time. It's not going to be until December and the ground freezes.
No. And we're moving into July, August, September. It is the best time of year to plant grass.
Yeah.
So don't even worry about planting grass seed. The hotter it is, the faster it comes up. It's prime grass planting season. Yeah.
All right.
Prime time.
Well, join us again next week for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
Miss a minute, you're missing a lot. Break